Hi, this is Kelly Tolman, and welcome to Literature Discussions. Today I wanted to talk about Frank Stockton's The Lady or the Tiger. I'm going to talk about the story in general, but then I'm going to take on the age-old question, was it the lady or was it the tiger? So this story is a classic in the classroom, and most of the students really enjoy it. Of course, the surprise ending, or perhaps better put, non-ending, is the part that gets the most attention. I would like to start this discussion, though, by focusing on how Mr. Stockton sets up the story. The reason we get so frustrated, excited, and involved in the ending is because he does such a great job of preparing us. Let's take a look at how he does that. So, first of all, he creates a wonderful setting. The setting is vague enough and yet detailed enough that we can become invested in the characters and their problems. He gives us some excellent descriptions of the king and of his daughter, and it is through the use of these details that we can make our judgments about the ending. One thing that students struggle with is that the vocabulary he uses sometimes can be difficult. So if you sometimes have trouble with new words, or if English is not your first language, you will want to have a dictionary or some other support handy. Words like florid and untrammeled aren't words we use every day. Looking at the characters and setting, we discover that the story is set up specifically to play with the reader. Just as the characters are placed in an arena and have to make a choice, the reader is placed in an arena and forced to make a choice. The king avoids making judgments by turning everything over to chance, and seemingly the author has done the same thing, placing himself in the role of the king. But the decision that the young man has to make isn't left entirely to chance. The princess has the answer, and because the princess has the answer, we also know that the young man has the answer. So, just as the author may have wanted us to leave the guest to chance, he has also given us a lot of clues, so the reader ends up taking on the role of the young man. This is a very clever story structure, but it is also a very engaging one. The strategy of breaking the fourth wall, or talking directly to the audience, is tricky to pull off, and here I think that Stockton does it well. One of the big questions I like to ask when I read this story is, what is justice? What does that word mean to you? Usually, we think about it in terms of crime and punishment, which is the case presented here in the story. But it can also have other contexts. Social justice is a term that was born in the 20th century and which is continuing to grow in importance. So, what does it mean? What is justice? In crime, does it mean punishment? Revenge? Restitution? Each of these terms is different, but each also plays a part in justice, depending on what you think is most important. Is justice served if a criminal goes to jail? What about the victim? In the case of theft, is justice served if the victim gets his or her things back? What about crimes where restitution can't be made? You can't fix a sex crime, for example. These are important questions that the author is exploring. Also, is being fair and being just the same thing? The king argues that his system has perfect fairness. There is no way to manipulate the system, so it had to be fair. If that is true, then why doesn't it feel fair? Justice systems today around the world can be manipulated, mistaken, or corrupted. There are many problems with our justice systems. But are they better or worse than the system of the king in the story? Would you rather be tried by a system that is completely random, or by a system that does its best to find the truth, but which is ultimately unfair? You don't have to look very far to find problems with our courts, our police, and our legislative process. But what would you replace them with? These are questions that I would encourage you to explore as you go through the story. Okay, so was it the lady or was it the tiger? Obviously, I'm not going to give you an answer, but I am going to point out some of the key evidence which supports both sides. So let's talk about the reasons why the tiger would be the one coming out. The key to this one would be that the princess had to lie. She indicated the door on the right, and he opened that door. So why would she lie? The obvious answer is jealousy. Quote, she had seen, or imagined that she had seen, the lady throwing glances of admiration upon her lover. End quote. The princess was a jealous woman. She knew that her boyfriend would be tempted, and she knew that the lady would be happy with him, and, quote, she hated the woman, end quote. So, those are two really good reasons to suppose that she would be happier to see her man dead than in the hands of another woman. If we do a little bit of a deeper read to the story, we can come up with another reason, and that is her personality and her relationship with her father. The princess shares many of the traits of her father, and she must have known the only possible outcome of her affair with this man. Having the tiger kill him would be as satisfying an end to the court intrigue as any other, and would allow her to follow her ambitions. On the other hand, it could have been the lady. The usual support for this answer is that she was in love and that she couldn't stand thinking of him being killed. Stockton writes, quote, the audience had not known so grand a youth had lived among them. No wonder the princess loved him. End quote. He also writes, quote, how often in her waking hours and in her dreams had she started in wild horror and covered her face with her hands as she thought of her lover opening the door on the other side of which waited the cruel fangs of the tiger. End quote. So, which do you agree with more and why? The author goes on to give many more reasons for both sides. I will suggest that to me, anyway, a close reading of the text gives a very firm answer. On the other hand, most of my students disagree with me, at least until they hear my reasons. Anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed today's discussion. Thank you for tuning in to Literature Discussions with Kelly Tolman, and be sure to check out all of my video and audio content at literaturediscussions.com. Thanks and good reading!